very good morning to everyone, and welcome to the latest Fixflo webinar, focusing today on kind of one of the, or arguably the most exciting parts of the UK property sector at the moment, the kind of build to rent side of things, with two brilliant guests this morning, and are brilliantly entitled by our marketing team, the build to rent way of life, as it were, kind of tech for scalable maintenance management, and be that kind of scheme on scheme, but also looking to kind of build the most profitable and successful build to rent portfolio kind of you possibly can, really. Just before I introduce my esteemed guests today and we kick things off, a bit of housekeeping. First of all, as always with these Fixflo webinars, we want you, the kind of listeners, the viewers, to interact with us as much as possible, and there are a couple of ways you can do that. Mainly through the question box on Zoom. I've got a panel up here that they'll filter through to, and hopefully we can pose to kind of both Rue and Richard in the end of the webinar even. And also, we're always looking for feedback as to ways we can improve these and make them bigger and better. So please feel free to email us, and there'll also be a feedback survey that comes through to you having subscribed to this webinar today. But without further ado, finally, just a quick disclaimer. Always forget about this one. But yeah, so content presented is in this webinar is for general information purposes, and please don't consider this as kind of legal advice or official guidance. Please seek the relevant channels for those. But perfect. So on to today's kind of key points, and mainly their guests. I'll let them introduce themselves first of all. So Rich, if you don't mind just saying hello, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. I'm Richard, the founder of Inventory Hive. So for those of you that don't know who Inventory Hive are, we're a cloud-based software platform built for property inspections with paperless workflows. We also do 360 virtual tours. We've been live and in action, as it were, for about 6 years now. So we're used by lots of build to rent providers, which I'm very pleased to say over the last couple of years, we've built a great customer base in that area. So we're always looking at developing the software. So we've got lots in store over the next year or two. So I suppose in relevance to this particular session, there's not many build to rent providers that aren't using us in some capacity now, which is obviously something that we're quite proud of, and I think that's by having good relationships with the likes of Rue from Way of Life and listening to feedback and so on. So hopefully we can convey some of that the benefits of integrated tech today, and obviously Rue's going to lead on that one.
Definitely. Yeah, myself, I suppose quick introduction, I'm sales team lead here at Fixflo. We are the market leading kind of repairs and maintenance specialist software, but I will keep it brief for the kind of star of the show and the main person today, Rue. If you could just give a quick introduction, that'd be great.
Yeah, you're too kind. Hey, Rue from Way of Life. We're a leading build to rent operator in the UK. We've seen massive growth over the last few years, and we have a really keen focus on digital and digital transformation at Way of Life. So we were early adopters of both Inventory Hive and Fixflo, known these companies for almost 4 or 5 years now. And yeah, excited to talk about how they've transformed the processes in our business and really helped us boost efficiencies and save time.
Brilliant stuff. And yeah, and to that end, just kind of 5 key points that we'll cover today on the screen, but they'll be up there the entire time. But as always, it's good to kind of start off with a tricky one and kind of focus on, I suppose, the challenges to begin with. So to that end, I suppose when it comes to maintenance management, what do you think is the key challenge, perhaps in the beginning days for yourselves at Way of Life and kind of other build to rent operators in general?
Yeah, I think for Way of Life and probably for most operators, one of the biggest challenges will definitely be time. Before implementing digital systems, we didn't really have true visibility of the time taken to complete a process. And we always knew things could be done quicker because people are organizing repairs through emails and saving things in manual Excel files on someone's machine. It's just not scalable. We have a finite resource pool, and it therefore means to complete these tasks properly, the existing team structure needs to invest more time, or we need to pay for a larger resource pool through inventory clerks and additional fees to contractors. we're a business that's grown rapidly, and in 2018, when I joined, we only had 138 units under management, and have since onboarded a further 1,100 units. We've sold a scheme, and we've got another 500 units going live in the next 12 months. So we needed tools and the support by platforms like Fixflo and Inventory Hive, which make onboarding and offboarding schemes a quick and accurate process. And these systems provide structure for the process, which are truly scalable and save us time as an organization.
No, that's really, really just on that. You mentioned kind of noticing those manual processes. Was it initially when you joined that just at kind of that size you saw something needed to change then?
Yeah, quite literally when we first started our journey, there was just a property management system and everything was being done by email. You know, even to find out what has happened in the last week, how many repairs did you have? How long did they take? How many have been dealt with? You know, no one could really answer those questions. And we knew we were onboarding more schemes and more sites quite rapidly and needed a system to manage all this. Otherwise, we'd never get our answers answered.
Yeah, and I also think as well, you know, the build to rent sector, because it was, you know, its own animal really, and yes, it could draw parallels from like the PBSA sector. Actually, it's slightly more complex because, you know, I know that was, you know, one of the terms being used at the time, it's like student accommodation but without the students. And obviously we're talking proper ASTs here, you know, not necessarily licensed occupier agreements. So that the compliance that goes with it was heavier. And I think a lot of build to rent providers, the conundrum was, do we in-house, do we outsource? If we do a bit of both, to what extent do we do it? And I think, you know, that's something that, you know, we at Inventory Hive wanted to help, you know, providers like Way of Life, you know, overcome that by offering a bit, almost like a bit of a hybrid model. And you know, it's kind of taken on its own life form since then.
For sure.
Definitely. I mean, oh God,
sorry, Will. Go for it, Will.
I was just going to say, no, I think it's one of those key things, isn't it, in kind of build to rent industry, where you draw those lines. You're perhaps drawing those lines earlier than you would do in kind of more conventional property management, block management. Maybe it's putting those processes in place for you. I think a Way of Life are a perfect example. That growth trajectory is so fast and so swift, and yeah, you're just going to get left behind perhaps.
Yeah, kind of thing. And I suppose, you know, it's that thing as well about having a model, isn't it? You know, one that you can rinse and repeat. You know, that you know has a sort of proven track record, really. So I suppose that kind of in my head leads onto the next point in terms of, you know, opportunities. So, you know, when you talk about those pain points, Ru, in terms of time and finite resource, you know, how have you been able to sort of take those pain points and then put, you know, tactics into play to, you know, to combat them or actually, you know, exploit opportunities?
Yeah, I'll split this response into both platforms. So if we look at, you know, the Fixflo side, Fixflo helps us ensure we resolve issues as quickly as possible, and it allows us to track these times effortlessly. The longer the issue takes to resolve, the more costly it will be to both the landlord and the customer. The functionality in the platform automates communication between customers and contractors. So this saves the on-site team, you know, a considerable amount of time and cost in dealing with each issue. And the information capture when an issue is initially reported, either by the resident or third-party systems like Inventory Hive, is comprehensive and standardized. And this means that the facilities management team have all the information they need from the very start to find the best solution and resolve these issues quickly. The platform also has a quote management functionality, which empowers the team to obtain multiple quotes and negotiate with our list of approved contractors to find the fastest, most reliable and cost-effective solution. The fact that the system captures feedback on performance after each of these issues empowers the maintenance team to make fast decisions with all the data in one place, and ensures that maintenance issues are resolved in line with the Way of Life quality and standards. The built-in dashboards enable building managers to have oversight of all issues, split by status, and this allows them to prioritize their attention to the most urgent issues. And despite there being issues, the speed and strong communication we keep with customers means our resident satisfaction remains high, and any impact to that satisfaction would impact our retention and NOI. So this is extremely important to us. In terms of inventory reports, prior to Inventory Hive, it was an extremely time-consuming and costly exercise because it was outsourced, often cost at least £50 per report, depending on the region. And these inventories needed to be coordinated in line with move-in and move-out dates. With Inventory Hive, our on-site team have the power to complete inventories in their own time and at no cost per report. And as the reports rely on pre-made templates for the various unit types, inventories take as little as 5 to 10 minutes now. The process is simple, and we've even empowered our on-site resident host teams, like our concierge, to complete these, and this saves valuable time from our leasing and building managers. Any issues raised by the inventory process is seamlessly pushed to Fixflo, initiating the resolution process. And historically, there would be back and forth in information gathering with inventory clerks, which may cause delays, even impact move-in dates. That's all disappeared now. We collect feedback, the feedback process from the residents when sending the initial report increases our customer experience, and we get great feedback of that because the customers know their observations, their opinions, their thoughts are considered and valued, which they just wouldn't have the opportunity to have in the traditional process. From a compliance point of view, the platform tracks when a report has been acknowledged and approved by customers, which again would be manual exercise, saving further time with the team. So as you can see, I've gone on a bit there, but both platforms have really successfully helped us minimize these pain points over the last 3 years.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and just to kind of echo what you said there, Roo, as well, for us, obviously, where I mentioned before about having a model that can be sort of, you can rinse and repeat. Obviously, we've been able to do that, across multiple sort of build to rent providers, and that is a key aspect, really. Obviously, when you talk about cost, that's a big issue if you're outsourcing, a reporting function that really, because the units don't necessarily change in terms of the decor and the furnishings that are in them. Once, providing you get that initial setup right, really from that point on, it's just a case of updating things in between. And obviously the benefit of that, and we did some case studies on this, and it's literally tens of thousands of pounds per site, not per provider. For each site, it was saving a huge amount of money. And then I'd like to say it was by design, but it kind of just happened, and that is that we found that on-site teams that were in-housing this as a function had perhaps better relationships with their residents. They were aware of things that were happening, because when the feedback was coming in about the inventory that maybe said, one of the hinges is loose in the kitchen, it may be a snagging issue, that issue was being passed through effortlessly through to Fixflo. If that was an outsourced function on a third-party system, they wouldn't necessarily have had that, the closeness to it. And I think that is one of the great things about tech, is obviously if you can harness the efficiencies of it, then you can be more connected to your residents and to the building and the processes in general. Really, obviously you have to draw the line somewhere, but it's that sort of cost benefit analysis, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, definitely. I think. Yeah, we heard it mentioned several times on both occasions. Just then, the kind of resident satisfaction, customer feedback piece of repairs and maintenance is kind of the pinnacle and main focus of that. We were speaking a bit just before we jumped on this as a group this morning about tenants remember how you deal with something when it goes wrong, and residents, that's what they focus on. It's not about kind of going above. As Rich said, that kind of nice quote there. But
yeah.
Awesome. So I suppose that kind of moves us, that data kind of tenant satisfaction piece moves us on something that's always kind of sparked from me, of several of us here at Fixflo working with you guys over the years, is you're very data driven as a business, and it's always something I've been very, very kind of conscious of, and one of the most data driven operators out there. What are the kind of key bits and pieces you measure for kind of business team performance on the daily, I suppose, or weekly?
Well, again, looking at Fixflo, it manages our full life cycle of maintenance issues and property management requests. So anything from replacing a broken appliance to fixing a chipped countertop. And the system is completely integrated with our property management system and purchase ledger. And therefore, we're able to track all our costs at an individual unit or communal area or scheme level. And we also pass all this information from Fixflo using your API into our own business intelligence platform, Way of Life Insights, where we keep all our management information. So for example, time taken to instruct, complete, resolve issues, number of quotes received against required, and the performance against SLAs to our various investors and landlords are all tracked in real time through the platform via the API. The platform allows us to monitor performance at a building level or individual user level, allowing us to, monitor how our teams are doing. And the building managers have access to these insights themselves, so they can monitor their own performance and improve their accountability. We use the compliance matrix within Fixflo to keep track of all the planned maintenance works that must be done on the building on a periodic basis. And in this way, we can be ahead and be sure all maintenance works have been done and comply with our safety and quality standards. We also auto-instruct jobs using the compliance matrix. So jobs are automatically sent to the relevant contractors at the specified date and time. And this is only the beginning of how we're using data that we can glean from Fixflo. I haven't even spoken about, after every issue, the contractor rates how they did, the facilities manager or the building manager rates how the job went, the customer rates how the job went. So that's 3 feedback points of data per issue that we collect. And it really helps us understand, how our contractors are performing, which ones are performing the best, which ones need to have further discussions to improve value they're delivering,
Well put. I think it's, you're linking on something we kind of mentioned, that constant feedback loop is, always kind of growing and moving on from there, I suppose.
Exactly. And if you don't have an in-house data team, Fixflo does offer additional modules to help you fast track to that. So if you need to measure SLAs, you can get additional modules that help you get those insights quicker.
And I suppose just something we've seen probably in the past couple of years, but mainly focused in the kind of build to rent sector is there's been a shift from being more reactive to being more proactive and having more planned maintenance events and checks is that something that's kind of happened naturally in the business? Have you seen just out of interest?
Yeah, 100. I mean, for us, it's a requirement across all our schemes, and our group operations manager is continuously overseeing everyone else's matrix and ensuring that all those planned tasks are done. And Fixflo makes it easy through the RAG, the traffic light system, where we can quickly see what's coming up, what's overdue, and red's on, never good. So, it's definitely a massive part of our operations now.
Yeah. Prevention is better than cure. There we go. There's the buzzword there, isn't it? Okay, cool. So in terms of when you're talking about those KPIs as well, Ru, how do you measure your success when you're doing any form of digital transformation or processes within Way of Life? What's the key things that you look at? I mean, I know we talked about costs and stuff before, but do you guys have a kind of blueprint for that, or is it a sort of case by case basis?
Yeah, we do have a blueprint. We sort of map out and assess the tangible objectives, which can be split into five objective types. So the improvement in the speed of a process, the increase in the accuracy of a process, savings in the cost of a process, automation in the reporting of a process, and enhance the engagement of the users in a process. Yeah. So if we go back to the speed, everything I've been saying for the last half an hour clearly shows how both platforms have independently saved us a considerable amount of time in their respective processes. And with the native integration between the two platforms, there's even more, efficiencies to be earned. In terms of accuracy, both platforms improve the accuracy of the process, both logistically and administratively, by automating comms and actions during the process, and by passing data between platforms rather than repeating data entry on systems. Yeah. In terms of cost, accurate inventories are crucial to minimize delays and end of tenancy defects and, the final money's due, all that process when somebody's leaving. And the fact that we can negotiate and obtain multiple quotes through Fixflo enables us to, get the best value from our contractors. Both platforms have integrations and APIs, and we have a real-time reporting platform which pulls structured, clean, and accurate data from these platforms. So far, 4 out of 4. And then lastly, in terms of the engagement of users in a process, we monitor usage metrics, performance metrics, productivity, satisfaction from customers, from property managers, asset managers, investors, quantitative feedback. And it's when we look at these objectives that we've initially set and we look at the actual performance against these objectives, we know that both these platforms have returned solid return on investment for us.
Yeah, and I think that for me is something that I've really picked up on within the BTR world. That sort of having a blueprint, having a process when implementing digital transformation. It's often it's one of those processes, isn't it, where you look at it at the beginning and make a business case for it, but then sometimes that's not reviewed. But in the build to rent world, it seems you guys are really hot on that. And I know you are as well, Ru. So, focusing on actually, this was the objective before we launched the project. And actually, yes, we are measuring it along the way to really look at, what the cost would have been, based on creating, say, I don't know, 200 reports in 6 months, 200 inventories. If we were outsourcing that, how much would it have cost, and so on and so forth. So to actually benchmark it, is great to see, because I don't think that's always been the case in the PRS world. It's often organisations know that have the need to do it, and then just and make a choice. But with build to rent, it seems a lot more data driven for sure. No,
definitely. I think it kind of ties into phrase. It's been knocking around for a while, but what I think really works and illustrates the point, Rich, you've just made kind of a proof of concept, even instead of just putting a business case showing, right, this is what we want to achieve, X has achieved this kind of thing. I think thinking back to Way of Life being a very data-driven business from the outset, I think it kind of nicely illustrates that. But I suppose...
I think again, looking back 3 years ago, especially with Inventory Hive, because there was tangible costs of how we used to do things before and how we then did things. I think we proved return on investment within 3 weeks or something, because of how costly the previous process was and how time consuming it was. And after we'd done like 8 inventories, the platform had paid for itself almost. And, it was really that quickly. And even with Fixflo, it was a slightly longer process because we didn't really have a process before. So it was trying to prove, we couldn't measure anything before. We can now measure how long and how costly something is. And that's clearly, delivered its own value through different objectives. But, it was very early on that both platforms proved their own successes.
Brilliant. And Ru, kind of just jumping on there, we've got a question from Toby in the chat. I suppose linking back to your kind of years that you guys have been doing this at Way of Life now, he's just asked, is there kind of evidence of this thorough approach driving down costs in the long term, or is it kind of too early to say? Do you have the data to kind of to back up those kind of statements, I suppose?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I joined, there was that famous 25% leakage that everyone's targeting for. And we've definitely seen, we've got cost headings, and the cost headings that are impacted largely by reactive and planned maintenance have been going down for the most part. Obviously things like utilities and insurances are going up, but we're definitely witnessing savings and more efficiencies across our schemes in that way. And again, we used to have a line for inventories, and they were hugely costly because they would largely be outsourced due to timing and resource, and those lines have disappeared. We've got a digital line now with a much more manageable cost, and it's definitely can see the value that these platforms are having to the end investors.
That's great to hear. I suppose we talked a lot so far about the kind of bigger picture, as it were, but something I'm always quite keen to find out about is kind of more on the day-to-day side of things. What are the kind of key metrics for you guys that you're tracking when it comes to property management, maintenance, kind of day-to-day?
Yeah, so day-to-day, we track how many issues are open. We use the Fixflo dashboard to know which issues haven't been instructed yet, which ones don't have jobs completed. If there are any issues where the jobs are completed and have all the documents in place, they must be closed so that they can be processed for finance. We monitor how fast jobs are instructed and completed depending on priority levels, the cost of the job and the number of quotes received. We track due or overdue works through the PPM tracker. And again, back to maybe Toby's point, we're managing cash flow, making sure that invoices payable are being processed as efficiently for the business's cash flow. And lastly, on the inventory side, we monitor day to day how making sure all inventories are acknowledged and approved in a timely manner, making sure that all issues raised during the inventory process are pushed to Fixflo. As you can see, it's only by having digital systems in place can we track all this data day to day.
Yeah, and goes back to that fifth point you made as well, Rue, about engagement, isn't it? And that is really, really key, because if any digital transformation is going to be successful, you need buy-in from the team, and that team needs to know that they're supported. Particularly if they're new to a system, they need to know that they can maybe have a play with the process beforehand, and then know there's somebody on hand. That's something that we've worked hard at in the BTR world, just to make sure that when new sites are going live, that we're there to do the heavy lifting at the start. So because we know how stressful that process can be for you guys. It's kind of like it all happens all at once, doesn't it? You have a week and it's live, and then before you know it, residents are coming in, and I bet it feels quite surreal. But obviously, for us, that's something we recognise, that where we can add value to what we offer, really. Aside from actually that, what the software does, it's how we service it.
Okay, brilliant. And I suppose we've got a couple audience questions I want to get to, but I suppose just before we do that, very very quickly, kind of playing devil's advocate, if you had one kind of metric that you could improve this year, what's the kind of focus for you guys at Way of Life, really?
Yeah, I think the question would depend on who you ask out of my team, really. If you ask my MD, I think she would say customer and staff satisfaction. The group operations manager would probably say SLA performance, and the senior asset manager would probably say NOI. It's probably not my job to decide what's the one metric that we're going to focus on, but it's clear by adopting, Fixflo and Inventory Hive, our performance against all these metrics have substantially been boosted. They're consistently improving and only heading in one direction. Nice. And by adopting Fixflo and Inventory Hive, other operators can achieve these quick wins and improve their own processes and boost the metrics that are most important to them.
Brilliant. I suppose that nicely links on several things you just said to a question we got here from Ellis, just kind of positioning. Have you noticed improved tenant relation through the use of tech for kind of proactive maintenance, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, even just looking at home views, which is the platform for our industry, at least, to receive that unfiltered, true, accurate feedback from customers. We've seen people comment about how great we've been at dealing with an issue, or how great they found our booking system. So yeah, we're definitely getting that feedback, and we've got great tenant retention, and we're noticing all these things accumulate to meeting our strategy in terms of retention and growth.
100%. And I suppose retention is that key metric, isn't it, that you guys are focusing on and everything's kind of gearing towards, I suppose. Another question, perhaps, Rue, again for yourself, and Rich, maybe you can pitch in on this one as well. But Adrian's asked kind of on best practice, Rue, how do you align doing property inspections in-house with industry best practice?
So from our point of view, our group operations manager, our mobilization manager are consistently training the wider team and keeping them up to speed with industry best practice, with any new compliance laws. We then also have the support from Richard's team at Inventory Hive, which are constantly, providing us with new education, any changes in legislation or process, So it's a collaborative effort, but it's definitely we're keeping in line with what we need to, and potentially even going above and beyond.
This is it. Yeah, I suppose just really quickly on that, because I know we're running out of time, but I suppose there's two elements, isn't there? One of the elements is the actual initial inventory, and that's where we do a lot of the heavy lifting. We make sure that the units have a really solid, robust inventory with really good written descriptions, because you don't want your on-site teams having to create an inventory. You don't need to do that. That's part of the setup, because they then updating photos, and because the system is audit trailed and paperless for residents to feedback photos and comments. In actual fact, you get better engagement, and obviously the ability to pass issues through to Fixflo and so on. So you get that connected side of things. And then if it's a routine inspection, we're very we have specific compliance questions in place, so that if someone's there, doing a routine inspection after 6 months or so on. I know some sites don't do those at all, but it's a very prescribed question set and prompts for the user. And then finally, we've also launched custom reports as well. So we have people that use us for fire door inspections, or any manner of report for a communal space. They can customize their own nowadays. So.
Brilliant. So I think, yeah, the answer to that one is just a combination of being on it in-house with using the right and best tech in place. Brilliantly. And almost as if we planned it, conveniently, that kind of brings us to 11:30 now. So I just wanted to, first of all, just say thank you, Rich and Ruth, for joining us today. Always a pleasure, never a chore. And
absolutely, yeah.
Final thing to point out is, feedback for Fixflo. As I mentioned at the beginning, please do give us any of your thoughts via email or the link on there. And we'd love to kind of see you next time and continue to improve these for you guys. But thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks both for your time, and thanks for everyone that took part today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Will. Pleasure as always. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.